Okay, so let's switch gears and unpack this. Welcome to a deep dive that's going to take us a bit further back than we usually go. We're heading to Paris, 1857. And it's a time of massive industrial and scientific revolution. You know, steam engines, rationalism is the new religion. But there's this other thing happening. In the salons, in the parlors, there is an absolute craze for the supernatural.
It's a fascinating moment, isn't it? Because you have this intense friction. You have hard science exploding on one hand, and then on the other, you have people gathering in dark rooms to watch tables.
Yeah.
Literally turn and listen for these mysterious rappings.
A total collision of worlds. And right in the middle of this, you have this French educator, Hippolyte Léon de Nézard-Rivail. We know him better by his pen name, Allan Kardec.
Right.
And the source material we're digging into today is his foundational text, Le Livre des Esprits, the Spirits book. But here's the thing, and this is what makes it so interesting. Kardec didn't claim to write this book.
Yeah.
And that is the crucial distinction to make right from the start. He saw himself not as the author, but as the compiler, the editor.
Right.
The content, he claimed, was dictated by superior spirits through all these different mediums. His role was to take thousands of answers to questions he posed, about God, the universe, the afterlife, and organize it, to put it into a logical, almost scientific framework.
So he wasn't trying to start a religion. He was trying to apply the scientific method to ghosts.
Exactly, to categorize the invisible world not as magic, but as just another law of nature. And that approach, that's why he was so obsessed with definitions, right? In the introduction, he spends so much time arguing about vocabulary. He insists on the word spiritism instead of spiritualism. Why was that so important?
Well, for him, precision was everything. He argued that spiritualism was.
Yeah.
It was just too broad.
How so?
You see, if you believe you have a soul, that there's something more than just matter, you're a spiritualist. That's just the opposite of a materialist. But that doesn't mean you believe spirits can talk to us.
Yeah.
So Kardec needed a new word. Spiritism was specifically for the belief in the communication with spirits. It implies an active relationship.
So let's get into the mechanics of that relationship. The most fundamental question the book asks is, what exactly is a spirit? Because pop culture has given us, everything from bedsheet ghosts to monsters.
Well, the source material is surprisingly grounded. According to the text, spirits aren't these abstract, vague beings. They are simply the souls of humans who have shed their physical bodies.
Shed them.
The analogy they use is incredibly simple. The body is just a garment, a heavy coat. Death is nothing more than taking off that coat because it's worn out. The person inside, they're exactly the same.
That's a comforting thought, but it also has a kind of spooky implication, doesn't it? The book says that because spirits are just people without bodies, they are everywhere.
That's the ubiquity. They're in the space around us, right next to us in the street, observing us, even impacting our thoughts. But there's a technical bit to this that Kardec introduces, which is vital. He calls it the paraspirit.
Yes, that word comes up a lot. It sounds like something out of science fiction.
It kind of does. But if we stick with analogies, which the spirits seem to love, think of a fruit.
Okay.
You have the seed. That's the soul, the intelligent part. Then you have the hard outer shell. That's the physical body. But in between the seed and the shell, there's the pulp. That's the paraspirit. It's a semi-material envelope. It connects the spirit to the body during life, and when the body dies, the spirit keeps this envelope. It's what gives a spirit its form. It's why a ghost might look like they did when they were alive.
So the body is the shell, soul is the seed, paraspirit is the pulp. I like that. It gives the invisible world some structure. But speaking of structure, let's talk about who lives there. For me, one of the biggest takeaways was that dying doesn't automatically make you smart.
It's a huge misconception, isn't it? That the dead suddenly have all the answers. Kardec's classification system, the hierarchy of spirits, makes it very clear that the spirit world is just as stratified as ours.
So just because someone's taken off the coat doesn't mean they're wise?
Not at all. The book breaks this down into 3 main orders, and this is where it starts to explain things like, haunting.
Okay, what's at the bottom?
At the bottom, you have the 3rd order, imperfect spirits. These spirits are still really attached to matter. They're subject to passions, hatred, vanity, all of it. This is where you find what the book calls brouillons, disorderly, mischievous spirits.
Brouillon.
Yeah. They aren't demons. The book is very specific about that. They're just annoying. They're the ones behind poltergeist activity, the knockers who make noise just to cause some chaos.
So they're basically cosmic trolls.
Precisely. They are bored, undeveloped souls just having a laugh at our expense. Then above them, you get the second order. Good spirits. Much better. Their main desires for good. They've shed those bad passions, but they still have more to learn. They're helpful, but not perfect. And then at the very top.
The first order.
The first order. Pure spirits. Completely dematerialized, they've reached intellectual and moral perfection. They're what we might call angels. They're close to the divine.
This hierarchy implies something really important for anyone trying to communicate, doesn't it? It means you have to be really careful who you're talking to.
That is the critical warning of the entire text. When you open a line of communication, you have no idea who is picking up the phone. A third-order spirit might lie to you, flatter you, or just mess with you for fun. You have to discern the quality of the spirit by the quality of the message.
Which brings us to the big why. Why are we here? Why are they there? If spirits are just people, and some are jerks and some are angels, what is the point of the whole system?
The purpose is progress. That's the absolute core of the doctrine. Spirits are created simple and ignorant, like a blank slate. To become a pure spirit, they have to undergo trials. They have to learn, and the schoolroom for that learning is the physical world.
Right. This is where reincarnation comes in. The text calls life on Earth a sieve or a filter, an edamine.
It's a purification process. The trials of life sickness, loss, difficult choices, that's the friction that polishes the soul. The spirits are very clear. We have all lived before, and we will live again.
And the trajectory is always forward.
Always. You can't regress. A human soul, they say, never comes back as an animal. You might stagnate, refuse to learn your lesson and have to repeat the grade, but you don't go backwards.
But, okay, if the point is to learn from our mistakes, why don't I remember my past lives? That seems like a design flaw. If I knew my neighbor was my mortal enemy in the 14th century, maybe I'd understand why we don't get along.
The book actually argues that remembering would be a complete disaster. They call the memory wipe a mercy.
A mercy.
Imagine if you knew your mother in this life was the person who murdered you in the last one. It would make reconciliation impossible. You'd hate her. By forgetting the details, you can start fresh. You can build a new relationship based on love, not old grievances.
I see.
But, and this is key, the text says we don't lose everything. We keep the intuition from our past lessons, that innate feeling of right and wrong, or a talent you just seem to be born with. That's the accumulation of your past experiences, even if you don't have the specific memories.
That makes a lot of sense. It protects our free will. Okay. I want to pivot to the how of all this. We mentioned tables turning. The evolution of the communication methods it's a fascinating look at 19th century problem solving.
It really was a sort of spiritual technological evolution. It started with the tables just moving. Then they figured out talking tables, where the table would tap out letters, 1 tap for A, 2 for B.
Oh, that must have taken forever, trying to get a philosophical treatise 1 tap at a time.
Exactly. So according to Kardec, the spirits suggested an upgrade. They moved to attaching a pencil to a small basket or planchette. The medium would just touch the edge of it, and the spirit would guide the basket to write.
Separating the medium's hand from the pencil.
Right, to prove it wasn't them doing it. But even that was clunky. Eventually, they realized the basket was unnecessary. The medium could just hold the pencil, and the spirit could influence the hand directly. That became psychography, or automatic writing.
But then we get back to that trust issue. You said spirits can lie. There's a specific problem mentioned in the text that I found, both hilarious and terrifying. The Fenelon problem.
Ah, yes. It's identity theft in the afterlife. Inferior spirits love to sound important, so they'll show up in a session and sign their name as Jesus or Socrates or Fenelon, a famous French archbishop. They crave the attention.
So how do you tell if you're talking to the real Socrates or just some bored spirit named Bob from down the street?
You have to audit the content. The spirits told Kardec, judge the tree by its fruit. If a spirit claims to be Fenelon but gives advice that's petty, illogical, or full of pride, it's an imposter.
The name means nothing.
Nothing. A truly superior spirit is recognized by the wisdom and benevolence of what they say, regardless of the name they use. In fact, many don't even care about names.
It's a real demand for critical thinking. You can't just accept a message because it's from the other side. You have to analyze it. Now, toward the end of the book, there's this beautiful symbol that Kardec was told to put right at the beginning, a grapevine.
The vine. It's a perfect summary of the whole doctrine. The spirits explained it like this. The body is the stalk, the structure. The soul is the grain, the potential, and the spirit is the wine,
the essence,
the refined product. The whole purpose of the stalk and the grain is to produce the wine. It represents all the work required to extract the essence of who we are.
And that work determines our afterlife, but the Spiritist view of the afterlife is it's very different from the traditional heaven and hell.
Radically different. They completely reject the idea of eternal physical torture. They argue that a supremely good God wouldn't condemn a soul to infinite suffering for finite mistakes.
So no fire and brimstone.
Not literally. Hell is described as a state of mind. It's the suffering of imperfect spirits. Envy, regret, isolation. If you die full of hatred, your hell is just living with that hatred, surrounded by other hateful spirits.
And heaven is the happiness of knowing you've progressed, the joy of understanding and being with those you love. But the most important part is that the door is never locked.
There's always hope. Exactly. No condemnation is eternal. Every spirit, no matter how low, always has another chance, another life to try again.
You know, it all really boils down to a very simple ethical code. For all the talk of spirits and dimensions, the moral of the story is something we've all heard before.
It's the golden rule. They emphasize that all this metaphysical complexity serves one simple goal: to destroy selfishness. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you live by that, you are aligning with the laws of the universe, whether you believe in spirits or not.
It's a fascinating worldview. It takes the chaos of the supernatural and tries to give it laws and logic and a moral purpose. It definitely changes how you look at the people around you.
Well, if we take this worldview to its conclusion, it suggests that the people we meet every day, our friends, our enemies, they're just immortal travelers. We've likely met before, all of us wearing these temporary coats, acting out a play to learn some lesson we haven't quite mastered yet.
That is a lot to think about. We're just actors on a very, very long stage. We are going to wrap up this deep dive here. Thank you for listening to this exploration of the 19th century invisible world. This has been a deep dive from Le Podcast de Philippe. Please help us to reach 2,000 subscribers and share our podcast.